purchases, like at an 80% or lower LVR. So 20% deposits on everything at least.
Oh, can I go deeper on this one?
Do
Where does the 20% deposit come from?
You mean from an income perspective, or where does my
Well, if you're
ratio
going
of 20%?
if you're going to come up with this 20% deposit, it's cash or equity?
Yeah, no, so it's cash already. So it's like sitting in a bank account right now. So the 20% deposits for the first 2 properties are already sitting there. So I can swing the bat, no worries at all. And then each one after that will probably come from cash. I'm not looking to extract equity out of my current properties. Even though they've got great LVRs, I'm not looking to extract out equity to buy more properties.
And this is something I've thought about a lot, and I'd love to know your point here. It seems if you've got equity, which I know you do, you could literally use equity and hold more liquidity, right? So you could go use that, lever up, get more debt, and then actually have more liquidity in your portfolio. You've elected in the way you've answered that question to say, no, I want to contribute cash. Why?
That's a good question. Comes back to my very, very strong risk mitigation because I'm like, if I just have so much equity sitting there, I need to make sure that every bank that looks at my portfolio goes, I'm willing to give you money. And so every bank, when I was talking to my mortgage broker about, hey, this is my plan, he looked over all of the current properties I've got and the LVRs. He's like, dude, you're literally a dream to every single bank on the face of the planet. He's like, everything's cash flow positive. LVRs are super low. He's like, as long as you maintain that, you can just continue borrowing. So, and because for me, one of the biggest problems I'm going to face is borrowing capacity when I'm looking to acquire 1.5 to 2 million. And so if I keep extracting money out, that might be fine. But when I'm looking to get that might be fine for that property. But when I look to buy another property, it might actually impact the potential or perceived serviceability of the new loan. And so that's the one thing that I just cannot impact at all is the ability to just get debt as quick and easy as I'd need for this acquisition run.
Yeah, and you said something there that I tend to agree with. I don't think investors value looking good to the banks enough. Like I maintain my good-looking nature to the banks at all times. I'm not willing to compromise on that. Like I want you to think about this is like if you and I were in our 20s and we went out to a nightclub, I aim to be that ridiculously good-looking girl that all the people in the venue would like to be with.
Totally.
That's how I want to feel to the banks. I want to be so attractive that they're just like itching to give me money.
Yeah. And that's exactly where I look at. And so for me, that's one of the big things. And I don't know, I've spoken to people about this before, and similar to, I know we've spoken about like your emergency fund previously.
No, we haven't. We haven't spoken about my emergency fund on this podcast at all.
You and I have spoken about the size of your emergency fund, and people think it's like crazy.
Grant, it's not just the size of my emergency fund; it's if you know how to use it.
But people talk to me saying like 20% deposits is crazy. Like having an emergency fund for 18 months worth of personal expenses is crazy. Like that's too much. Like you need to lever up and utilize debt in order to acquire more, and you're going to get to your North Star quicker and all these things. And I'm like, yeah, but I won't sleep at night. Like I will be freaking out. I'm like, I would much prefer to take a smoother run at investment without needing to keep an eye open at night or do things that I don't want to do in order to earn the money to go and pay things off or whatever. I'm very much how do I play this long game? Because I'm going to be investing for decades. This is not a run as hard as I possibly can and then close up shop and just live off the rest. It's a long game. So yeah. And then
hold up there. We're digging into that. We're digging into that more. Well, I want to, it's so interesting to me to hear you speak of it that way, because I had this realization that the biggest risk I have when it comes to property investing, I look at in the mirror every morning when I wake up. Yeah. And I see tendencies in myself where I can get excited and make terrible decisions. Terrible. And I kid you not, I'll share this story briefly. It's like when we bought our first investment property, which was I'll call it a development. So we bought a splitter, we did the splitter, and then we got the property revalued. So we bought this property, let's just say we were all in for about $1 million.
Yep.
And then we got it refinanced and it came back valued at 1.35 maybe a year later. So in 1 year, made 350 grand on this property, and like we were celebrating. And do you know what my instant reaction was?
Sleeping night factor.
No, go again. Let's go.
Yeah.
And I very quickly got overly excited, engaged a buyer's agent again, didn't pay attention to anything, and was overly optimistic on what would happen, and got myself into a position where risk was sky high.
Yeah.
And I look at that and go, wow, I am really dangerous in those moments of wins because I've become overexcited and I'm in there and I haven't got these rules in place. So to the point is like I look at it and go, if I act like that, ultimately what it leads to is that I can't sleep well at night.
Or you make decisions that if you didn't have that necessity, you wouldn't have made those decisions.
Yeah, it's not calculated or to a goal. It's like over enthusiasm in the moment.
Totally.
So the rules I came up with for me, and it's funny that they're quite similar, although not really, we tend to do a lot of things in a similar way, is having to come up with a 20% deposit out of cash stops me from being stupid.
So totally.
Yeah. And then the other side of that is that if you continually are able to come up with 20% deposits, it keeps your borrowing really healthy to be able to keep going in that way. Where if you keep levering up out of equity, eventually you hit a stop.
Yeah.
And I've met many people as well that have, and I completely understand why they do it. I'm not going to say that it doesn't work. It can clearly work just levering up to the max. But when you lever up continually, so you buy a house, pull the equity out of it to get the next one, then you pull the equity out of that to get the next one, you just destroy the cash flow because you're continually always creating more and more debt. So it takes longer for those properties to ever actually generate a cash flow positive return. And maybe that's your strategy and it's cool. But if you're into cash flow like yourself, Grant, and me, those types of moves can actually be counter to the overall cash flow position of the portfolio.
Well, this is, and it's interesting that you mentioned that because stepping into this year with the accumulator role, I know that the cash flow on the new properties I'm buying, or I'm prepared. I shouldn't say I know because I don't know what their houses are or what assets I'm going to buy, right? But I'm totally prepared for them to not be cash flow positive. And I'm fine with that because I know the market I'm getting into and I know the current environment and the cost of debt at the moment and all these things. I just need to accumulate, which is also the other reason I have these buffers in place because I'm like, well, I'm just not going to sit here and just wait to not buy anything until it's like this perfect Goldilocks, like great cash flow positive growth looks fantastic and all these things. It's like, no, I'm here to acquire. I'm here to load up on debt.
That never happens, by the way.
No, totally.
We have like this fantasy property. It's like, the perfect property is just waiting out there. No, you know, every time I bought a property, I think I've secretly wanted something else.
just it never happened in women. I've got the perfect wife.
Yeah, well, let's not go there. That's dangerous. But even in the one I spoke about, when we were buying the development side, is I wanted a cash flow opportunity at that point. Totally. It's just that the development opportunity was too strong. And then after it, we bought a cash flow property and then we just had the win from the development. I'm like, no, I want another development. But we couldn't find developments like that at the time. Totally. So like property is really interesting where you might have a strategy, but if the market environment just doesn't have that available to it, you may have to work with what the environment presents.
All right, fellow property investor, if you loved the value from this short video and wanted to know more about how you can win at property investing, check out the full episode by clicking the link on your screen or in the description right now. Alternatively, click subscribe and you'll never miss another one of these videos.